Mid-autumn. Mogollon Rim near Sedona, Arizona. Cold mornings, clear days. 4 of us got dropped off at sunrise to help the sheriff find hikers who went missing. We had to search quietly and get out before dark. Nothing special. Boots on the ground, radios working, normal checks. Then the woods went silent like something was listening. Rocks fell straight down from above. A cough came from the trees that sounded almost like a person but not quite right. We kept walking. By sunset, I knew we were not alone out there. You want to know what it was? Fine, I'll tell you. So before we continue, please make sure to like and subscribe to support the channel and comment down below where you're watching from. Thanks. The helicopter blades chopped the air over red rock and green pine trees. The warning came in loud and clear. The rim ran long like a wall, sharp as a knife in the light. The bird turned, dust flew up, and the landing skid touched dirt. Cold air pushed into the cabin. Jet fuel and pine mixed together, and I could taste it in my teeth. We stepped off into a Forest Service clearing with old tire tracks and frost still hiding under the grass. The pilot gave us a quick thumbs up. Then the helicopter lifted up and flew east toward open country. The noise faded until there was only wind in the trees. I watched it leave and then looked down at the ground. Pine needles, dust, a crushed soda can half buried. The usual stuff. My stomach calmed down. The day had a plan. I like plans. I am Daniel Brooks, Captain. Late 30s when this happened. Calm enough to make a man feel safe. Not calm enough to sleep easily after. I kept a small notebook in my left chest pocket. Same one I used in other places for worse reasons. Here it felt out of place, but I kept it anyway. Old habit, we were 4. Henry Adams, lieutenant, early 30s. A map and compass guy. He loved paper maps like they were his friend. He knew distances like someone who measures land for a living. You could point at a hill and he would tell you how long it takes to get there with a full backpack and a sore knee. He had that neat mind. He planned the path in his head before his boots touched it. William Carter, sergeant, mid-30s, family man with sharp senses. The one who would stop one step before a cliff nobody else saw. Quiet, practical, checked everyone's gloves, headlamps, first aid kits twice. He wanted us home for dinner. He said it like a joke, but it wasn't. James Walker Blake, 20s, youngest, wanted to prove himself but wasn't a fool. Good with people. He asked real questions and listened. I put him in charge of the camera. Digital, nothing fancy. Take pictures of trail markers, footprints, odd trash piles, stuff to help figure out what happened on a day someone didn't finish. Why we were here was simple. The rim had been taking people. Too many for comfort. Day hikers, a hunter, a geology student on a field trip, personal items near animal trails. A boot, a phone that was dead even though the battery should still work. A jacket at a turn where nobody would drop a jacket. No bodies. The county sheriff had too much work. Rangers and volunteers had already searched. Too many acres, wind, steep ground. You can lose a truck up here and not find it for a month. We were asked to help with a quiet search. Not a combat mission, not in the news. Search known trails. Write down anything that pointed to where people disappeared. Footprints, torn cloth, camps, trash piles. Call on the radio at set times. Get out before dark, simple, no hero stuff. We go slow, we go home. I said that to the team. Moy tightened straps and ran hands over gear. We go slow, we go home. I kept my voice low and steady. No excitement. I learned that excitement causes trouble in the woods. The plan was the plan. Start at base, search, radio checks every hour and half hour. Leave before night. If anything looked wrong, we marked it and moved on. No long stops, no deep searching. The rim didn't care how tough we thought we were. There was a faded wooden trail sign a few yards from the clearing. The letters were carved with a dull tool years ago. Mogollon Rim Trail. Someone had thumbtacked missing person posters to the sign. Edges curled, faces printed on cheap paper, names in bold letters. A student with a hat and a big smile. A man with a camouflage vest. A woman with a pink hair tie on her wrist. I read the first names out loud and wrote the first letters in my notebook. I never write the whole name until the person comes home. Old superstition. Mine, a ranger, met us there. Worn jacket, baseball cap faded by sun. He had the look of a man who spent long days alone. He pointed along the ridge and gave us final words. Watch the drop-offs. Wind carries sound here. Coyotes sound like people sometimes. He glanced at the woods like they were listening. A quick look, habit. Then he gave a small nod. He had been out here when it got strange. I could tell he didn't want to scare us. He didn't have to. There was a truck parked off the dirt road by the sign. A volunteer's truck from yesterday. Windshield had frost on the north half only. That told me how fast the temperatures changed. You could be sweating at noon and shaking by sunset. I touched the glass with my glove and felt dirt and cold. Adams unfolded his map and smoothed it on the tailgate. He traced our path with a gloved finger. 2 main loops, he said. 1 north side below the rim edge. 1 lower east spur. Water seeps here, here, and here. We keep the ridge on our left going out, on our right coming back. 10 miles if we do both. We are not doing both. He looked at me, I nodded. 1 loop shorter, cleaner. Carter went person to person and checked everything. Chin straps, braces, gloves. He tapped my medical kit like a safety check. Extra tape, he said. 2 rolls, I said. Headlamps, new batteries, he said. New, I said. He looked at Walker. Camera, extra card. Walker lifted the camera. 2 cards, fresh. He kept his voice down. You can tell when a young guy is acting steady. Because he cares what you think. He didn't show off. Good. We set up a small base on the edge of the clearing under some pine trees. Tarp low. Backpack stacked, water, and a little food set aside for when we got back. Nothing heavy. We would be out for hours, not days. I marked the location in my notebook. Then we stepped onto the trail. The first walk was quiet. The cold bit our noses. Sun warmed our backs. The world was normal. Bird calls came in from the side slopes. A woodpecker tapped somewhere off to the right. I could smell tree sap and dust. The path was narrow and crusted with frost in the shadows and soft where the sun touched it. Adams set an easy pace. He checked the map every so often without breaking his walking rhythm. He liked that paper between his hands. It was how he thought. We took the ridge east. The rim fell away in sudden drop-offs with views that pulled you hard if you stared. Red rock walls and broken shelves, pine trees and thick stands, and then open fields where old fire had burned through years back. The wind carried a whistle through the needles. It was the kind you get only on high ground, fast and thin. Nothing strange yet. A jaybird followed behind us for 100 yards, yelling like a neighbor. We kept moving. I wrote down the time. Normal is a thing to be grateful for. I didn't know how much I would miss it by late afternoon. We hit the first radio check on time. Clear voice to the ranger station. Survey team base check. All green, copy, all green. The reply came back. Straight, clean. No drama. Walker took photos of trail markers with fresh paint and of a few old cuts across tree trunks where someone had tried to mark a path with a dull knife. He also snapped pictures of the missing posters at the sign on our way out. He didn't say much. He looked left and right. He listened. Good habit. We passed a low stone ledge with lichen-like gray scabs and frost still in the shade. Our breath showed when wind came through. Then the sun cleared the pines and burned it off. We walked in that mix of warm on the back and cold on the face that happens after the first big cold snap of the season. I remember thinking, we will be back before it changes. That was the plan. Always the plan. The rim looked endless. Like you could walk it for weeks and never step in the same place twice. We had hours, not weeks, so we kept it tight. We did what we came to do. It changed slowly at first. Little things you can explain if you want to. We started along a narrower section where the trail hugged a ledge, and the drop to the left went fast into green trees. The wind came off the cliff and took our voices. I called the check to Adams and heard myself call it again a second later, bent and thin and thrown back by the wall. Same words, wrong shape, I paused. I have heard echoes in canyons and cities. This one came late and blurred like the cliff wanted to keep it. We pushed on a quarter-mile more. The ground leveled, the trees opened, and we came to a small flat area with old fire scars and an animal trail cutting across. Carter pointed with 2 fingers. A single hiking boot lay off the trail in bushes. Left boot, laces cut clean, not torn. The leather was scratched but not chewed by animals. No blood, no matching boot. The kind of thing that makes your chest tight because it's strange and simple. Someone sat down, took off a boot, cut the lace, then what? I wrote left boot lace cut in the notebook with the time. Walker took 3 photos. Toe, heel, and the cut. We crossed through bushes and found a camera strap snagged low in the branches. No camera. Strap frayed at one end, the clip still on the other. Walker shook his head. Somebody pushed through here in a hurry, he said. He was right. Most people guard their camera like a wallet. If you leave the camera, something rushed you or you fell or you ran. He photographed the strap in place and then bagged it. 100 yards more and we found snack wrappers tucked under a flat stone, not just thrown away, folded tight into squares and stacked. You see people do that at trailheads sometimes to be neat. You don't see it in the middle of nowhere. Not stacked that tight. Carter lifted the rock and let out a breath. Someone was sorting trash out here, he said. He was thinking what I was thinking. Sorting isn't panic. Sorting is time, or it's a habit you can't shut off even when you should. I wrote it down. We kept the steady pace. The wind moved in the pine trees and the sun cut beams through dust in the air. A smell came and went with the gusts. Wet dog smell. Not bad like a dead thing. Not sweet like rot. Just thick and animal. Carter said elk. Adams frowned at the sky and shook his head. Wind steady, he said. Since morning. He didn't like that. I didn't either. I have smelled elk. This was not that. But I wrote musk because that's what it was. I don't write guesses in the book. We passed a big pine tree with old scars high up. Not bear-sized, wide, narrow, vertical, at least 8 feet off the ground. The sap had run and hardened years ago. Old sign, still it bothered me. Something long and narrow had scraped that trunk higher than a tall man could reach without help. No ladder out here. No reason to do that. Walker held up a hand. He listened with his head turned toward the east slope. Talking, he said low. We all froze. I heard only wind and a faraway jaybird. He held still longer. Then he shook his head. Sounded like 2 voices, he whispered. Like a couple whispering. He raised his chin to the trees. Whatever it was had stopped. Walker looked rattled, not spooked, just off. He's good with people. He knows how voices sound in the air. He didn't make that claim for fun. A jaybird had been following us. It hopped branch to branch and gave us trouble for being there. Then it went silent like someone hit a switch. And not just the jay, all of them. No small birds, no woodpecker, no chatter. It happens sometimes when a hawk or wildcat moves through. It happened too fast for that. The silence settled heavy and clear. I could hear our coats shift. The wind still ran. The trees still moved, but the forest went quiet like it didn't want to draw attention. I looked at the others. Adams glanced up at the ridgeline. Carter tightened his shoulder straps a notch. Walker checked the camera like a nervous habit. Nothing was wrong, but everything was wrong. We walked anyway. That's what you do. The next radio check hit. I called it. Survey team. Base check. A crackle. A small warble. And then our ranger came back clear as a bell. Copy, check, good. My shoulders relaxed a little. The radio was clean. The trail was marked on the map. The sun was still high. Normal kept 1 foot inside the door. We took water and moved. The rim carried our steps along like a rail line. The worry stayed. It didn't break. It just rode with us out of sight. I caught myself glancing back more than I should have. The path looked the same both ways. That's a thing I don't trust. We hit a low point between 2 hills and dropped into a shallow bowl with a little water seep at the low point. There was black mud there and rough grass where deer had eaten the tops. A fire ring sat off to the side. Someone had half covered it with dirt, not a proper cold out, just kicked over and forgotten. Around it were human footprints where the ground still held shape. 2 sets, one bigger than the other, boot tread shallow from dryness the day before. Laid over them after the frost were a mess of larger prints. Wide bare, not clear. Edges softened by the freeze and morning melt. Spaced wider than a man usually steps in brush. I'm careful with this kind of thing. You can see what you want to see. I crouched and used my palm to measure stride, heel to heel, longer than mine by a hand and a half. I have a long stride. Adam squatted beside me and didn't speak. He doesn't guess either. Walker took photos low with a coin for scale. We bagged ash from the fire ring in case the sheriff wanted to test it. I wrote the time, the location, and the note that the frost softened the edges. I don't know why I wrote that. Maybe because I wanted to tie the strange thing to a real fact. We worked outward from the ring. Carter's voice came low. Here. A faded college ID holder hung twisted in a bush branch. The card itself was gone. The clip was snapped. The holder had dirt ground into it. A metal water bottle lay near a log with a dent like a pinch at the middle. Not crushed. Pinched. Walker lifted it and we looked at the shape. Thumb and fingers wouldn't do that. A boot heel wouldn't. A truck would fold it, not pinch it. We all saw it. Nobody said what we were thinking. He bagged it. A red bandana flapped at eye level, tied high on a young tree like a marker. People do that to help a friend find them. People also do that when they're losing the trail and losing their nerve. I wrote it all item by item. No describing words. Facts hold. A clack sounded on the trail above us. A stone hitting stone. No roll, a drop. Straight down from the slope to our left. Carter froze and raised 2 fingers without looking at me. I answered the same and we stood still. I looked up into the trees and rocks. A second rock hit. Same sound. Click on stone. Then nothing. Adams cupped a hand and gave a short hey to the slope. Not a shout, test tone. A long 2 heartbeats later, a single whoop came back from farther away. Could have been a person. Could have been a coyote sounding weird in the wind. Could have been a thing we didn't know yet. We waited a minute. Nothing followed. Walker aimed his camera uphill. Trees, rocks, no people. He lowered it. He had that frustrated look. He wanted to catch something real, not a story told at a bar. I understood. We started to move when Walker stiffened and lifted the camera again. Shadow, he whispered, crossed behind those trees. Big shoulder. We all searched the slope. Branches moved. A squirrel barked high up in a pine like it had just remembered how to live. I saw nothing. My skin prickled anyway. The sun felt less warm on my back. It happens when you brace without knowing you did. We pushed out of the bowl and picked up the main line again. We kept it slow. Check off the evidence. Keep the search. Keep the clock. This was still explainable. Hikers, hunters, maybe somebody camped on the wrong side of smart. Rocks fall. Wind carries calls in ways you don't like. You can stack a dozen small wrongs and still live for a while. The trail climbed steady along the slope until we hit a patch where storm blowdown had twisted trunks and snapped tops years back. A fresh structure stood in the mess. Not a kid fort, not storm pile. A lean-to of snapped branches 8 feet tall and nearly as wide. The pieces were clean breaks. No blade marks, ends white where fibers tore. Inside was a floor cleared of needles with neat stacks of stones at one end. Round river stones. Not from here. And a bundle of sticks bound with grass. Tight, precise. I have seen shelters built in a hurry. This was not that. It was done on purpose. It said this is a place. It said someone meant to use it or to show it. We didn't go inside. We circled and took photos from 3 angles. I made a small square in the dirt with my boot and placed a twig on one edge. When we passed back by later, I would know if anything moved. Old trick. We didn't plan to pass back, but I did it anyway. Habit. If you feel watched, you start leaving signs for yourself so you can tell if your head is lying. Knocks started soon after we left the lean-to. One echo from close, one from farther, then a low whistle that didn't match any bird we knew. It rose, stopped short, and held the air open like a door. I marked the time and the direction we thought we heard it. Sound plays tricks in the rim. The cliff changes it. The pine trees cut it up. Still, we know birds. This was not one. We found more items. A torn corner of a map with a pencil circle around a stream crossing miles from here. Someone had circled it like a target. The paper was weathered but not rotten. A scarf hung 20 feet up in a young pine. Not thrown. Placed. You can't toss a scarf and have it loop twice and hold there unless you place it. No footprints below. The trunk had no marks. My throat tightened when I looked at it. Not fear, anger. Whoever put that up wanted someone to stand under it and feel small. A band of smell cut across the slope and stopped me mid-step. Thick, sour. It made my eyes water. My mouth filled with spit. Then it was gone. A step more. Clear air. Wind hadn't shifted. Adams stared at the needles. The rest of us stared at him. No one had anything to say that would help. We moved. Near a water seep, we had a patch of soil that held shape under my boot. In that patch were 5 prints in a straight line across where the seep ran off into the ground cover. Long, wide, deep, not a deer track, not a boot, not a bear. Heel to toe, clear enough to see toes on the 2 best ones. No claw marks, spaced far apart. I set my hand flat heel to heel and counted. 1 step was longer than any of ours, even if you made a show of it. Brooks, I wrote, measured with hand. I didn't write what I felt. My hands were cold in the gloves, but I could feel my palms sweat. We worked a little farther and found a place where someone or something had dug a shallow bed in the pine needles. Oval, 2 feet wide and 5 feet long. Not quite a body length for a tall man, but lined with needles in a careful way. Under the top layer it was warm, not hot. Warm like a dog had lain there and moved on. No hair, no animal poop, nothing else, only warmth. I slid my hand back out and dried it on my pants. The wind felt colder on my fingers after. The woods pressed on us. That's the best way I can say it and still be honest. Steps moved with us in the trees where the view broke into trunks and shadow. One set on the left, then it swapped to the right, then behind. When we stopped, it stopped. When we moved, it moved. We never caught it in the open. The pace matched us. Not rushed, not sloppy. I have been paced by men who wanted to kill me. This felt different. This felt like a study. The way a big dog looks at a new thing and knows it could end the new thing if it had to. Radio check on the half-hour came garbled. An echo inside the call like 2 people spoke on the same channel at a slight delay. The next second it cleared. Copy check, good, the ranger said. His voice sounded worried, not of us, of his day. I looked up the ridge and traced where rock might block signal. Adams did the same and tapped the line with his finger. There, he said. It was an explanation that didn't explain the echo. He made himself accept it anyway. The sun slid west. Shadows stretched. I felt the clock crawl up our necks. We had a turn point picked. We were close to it. I considered pushing 100 yards farther to satisfy the itch to see one more thing. Then I told myself the rule and stuck to it. You don't go just a little farther in this kind of country. A little farther means a little late. A little late means dark. Dark on the rim is not a place you want to learn in real time. We turn around according to the plan. The mountains don't care if you're curious. Late afternoon shade leaned in from the high country. We moved along a parallel slope where pine trees grew in columns with bare ground in between. Clean sight lines. The kind that make you feel like you can finally see what has been after you all day. Then we saw it. It stood between 2 pine trees on the opposite slope. Tall, wide at the shoulders, dark coat that laid heavy like wet hair. One arm rested on a trunk with a hand spread out. It turned its head and looked straight at us. No rush, no surprise, calm, not a bear. The posture killed that idea. Not a moose. There are no moose here anyway. Not a man in a suit because the body hung right and the joints moved right, and the light reached into the hair and showed skin where hair parted at the wrist and neck. Little plain things you notice when you're used to looking for lies. We didn't breathe. We didn't speak. Leaves shook in a soft gust between us. My heart thumped slow and hard. It took 2 steps uphill and slid behind a rock outcrop like smoke. It wasn't smoke. It was weight and muscle and control, but it moved with a smooth line that didn't fit the size. It was like watching a heavy truck, you know. Well, drift through a gap only a small car should fit. The mind doesn't like it. It short-circuits and then catches up. We stood in that gap where you want to chase and you want to run and you want to stand still. None of those are right in full. Small rocks began to click down the slope on both sides. Not a landslide, not a slide, placed. A fist-sized one bounced near Walker's boot and stopped dead in the ground cover. He jerked his foot away like he had been shocked. Carter put his palm down. Steady. His eyes moved like radar. Something big moved behind us in a way that didn't care if we heard. Not a stalk, a pass. A heavy exhale hit my neck like a fist of warm air. Hot, damp. Pine and musk mixed in it. Carter spun and saw what I didn't. A shoulder slid past the trunk at 10 feet. A hand touched the bark and used it for balance. Fingers too long, too sure, not fumbling. The palm left a dark spot where tree resin warmed under the heat. Then it was gone into brush with no sound you could track. You felt it in your bones anyway. Decision was easy. We fall back to base while light holds. I kept my voice low. We move, tight file. Eyes up, no panic. This was not a route march. This was contact, and we were leaving the contact zone because there was no fight here. We could win, and no win here that mattered. Adams nodded. He looked pale. Pain sat behind his eyes. I hadn't heard him complain. He doesn't, but I could see the pulse in his neck jump. Walker's face showed both fear and relief. He got the sighting. That would live with him. It will live with me. We started moving when a log came down the slope from above. Not a roll, a shove. You can tell the difference. A roll rattles rocks and scrapes dirt. A shove has drive. It came at an angle and clipped Adams at the hip and ribs. He went to one knee with a grunt and grabbed a root to keep from sliding. He hissed air through his teeth. Walker was there in a second and pulled him up. Adam said, "I'm good." He wasn't, but he could move. That was the important part. The log wedged and held behind us like a gate we had just missed closing. We moved. We kept it steady. We didn't give them a run to chase. That felt right. The woods watched like a crowd. I have never felt that weight and focus in the backcountry before or since. It wasn't hate. It wasn't fear. It was calculation. The sun slipped behind the rim and the light went thin. The temperature dropped hard. Our breath showed like smoke in front of us. The forest went dead quiet again. A quiet with shape, not the lazy quiet before dinner. The one you get when something big enters a room and everyone shuts up. Steps kept pace with us on both sides. Exact distance. When we sped up, it sped up. When we stopped, it stopped. Sometimes we heard it ahead too. The same weight, the same branch snaps. Either there was more than one or it moved like water through spaces we couldn't follow. I hate guessing numbers in the dark. You're always wrong, but that night I would have bet we had at least two. A cough came from the trees to the right. Human-like, but not like someone copied the sound without knowing how a chest makes it. Short, flat, wrong in tone. Walker flinched and then laughed one hard breath and cut it off. Laughing in the dark is a fight with your own head. A pine tree shuddered 20 yards off like a truck had bumped it. Cones and needles rained down. There was no wind in that moment. I saw the trunk move with force and stop. We stood in our tracks and then moved again because standing felt like putting our necks on a block. Pain stacked up fast. Adams fought for breath. The log had hit his ribs hard. He grunted when he hit a rut wrong. Carter's knee twisted on a root in a patch of shadow. He cursed under his breath and caught himself on a trunk. "I'm fine," he said. He wasn't. The knee would swell if we let it. We wouldn't let it because we had to get out before it could. The charge came from the right. A sudden rush through brush. No scream, no show, just speed and weight. I saw a blur, a shoulder, a head, an arm that looked too long in the light we had left. It slammed Carter and sent him face first into dirt. He groaned and rolled to his back. Something heavy stood over him. One heartbeat. Hot breath hit his face. A low rumble in its chest. Then it peeled away upslope. Branches snapped like dry bones breaking under that weight. Carter sat up. Blood ran down his cheek from a cut near the eye. He touched it and blinked and said he was okay. He was dazed. He kept moving anyway. He's stubborn. That saved us later. I raised my light, not a blinding beam, just enough to find path and faces. Eyes shine, winked once and vanished. Too high for a deer. Another set lower a second later at the edge of a deadfall. For a moment it looked like two. I didn't say it. I didn't need to. We all felt it. Then a voice behind us said this way in Walker's tone. Same pitch, same throw. Walker stopped like someone had tugged a wire in his neck. "I didn't say that," he said. The air went hollow. We froze. You can fall for it if you let your head want the easy thing. We stood and listened. Nothing but our breath. Nothing but needles settling. Then a soft footstep in ground cover just beyond the cone of light. Not a deer, not a man who drinks and wanders. Heavy, patient. We took another step. A hand pressed into damp soil right beside my boot. Wide palm pads like leather. Thumb set lower than human. The print filled while I stared. It was fresh and it was right there. And the heat from it touched my face as the cold air bit at my teeth. My mouth went dry. I pulled my boot away an inch like it would bite. We had a choice. Stay on the main trail where we had too many clearings and too many open sides, or cut to an animal trail that Adams swore would shortcut the last ridge to the base. It was tighter, darker, faster. Carter's knee would hate it. Adams's ribs would curse it. Walker could carry on one leg if he had to. We took the animal trail. You can second-guess that from a couch. In the trees with eyes on you and light dying, you take what gets you to food, heat, and a radio fastest. Adams pointed, left at the dead tree with a lightning scar, then hugged the slab. We went. The trail dipped into a draw and climbed. My headlamp cut tunnels through needles. Footfalls stayed with us, always just beyond the edge. A whistle came low. A knock answered it from ahead. They were talking. That's how it felt. Talking around us. I tasted metal in my mouth. That taste shows up when fear surges and your body dumps the wrong chemicals at the wrong time. Fine. I kept my voice steady and called the turn. Left here. Watch your feet. We moved like a slow machine with broken gears that still worked because the operator wouldn't let it stop. The cold settled in my forearms and around my kidneys and sat there like a bag of ice. The light got thin enough that the edges went dark. The track narrowed, then widened, then narrowed again. The rim waited for us to slip. It always does. We didn't give it what it wanted yet. The animal trail choked at a bottleneck between two big boulders. On the other side, the ground slid steep and loose into scrub. The woods pressed close. The smell came back. Stronger musk and wet earth mixed like an old barn after rain. We were in its throat. I raised my hand. Stop. We stacked tight in the gap. The bend ahead cut the view. The beam of my light thrown to the corner showed only bark and rock and the breath out of Carter's mouth. We listened. My ribs told me to turn around. My brain told me to go forward. The base wasn't far. I pictured the tarp. I pictured the water jugs and the little stove and the radio that smiled when it caught a clean signal. I pictured what would happen to my men if I froze. Then it stepped out. Close. Close enough to see wet hair clumped at the shoulders. Breath fogged out of its mouth. Dark eyes set deep under a brow that crowded them. Taller than any man I've stood beside. Chest broad without bodybuilder show. Arms long and heavy. Legs thick as small trees. No roar, no pose. It watched us like a man at a window late at night, watching a car idle outside. Measuring, not scared, not ready to kill. Ready to do something we wouldn't like if we did the wrong thing. I lifted my hands where it could see them. Empty. A simple thing you do when an animal owns the room. My voice came low and flat. We're leaving. That was it. I didn't add words. Words don't help. It tilted its head like it weighed that sentence. Then it glanced past us down the line like it was counting. That chilled me more than the size or the breath or the smell. Counting means it knows how many and what that means. It moved once, a blur, not a flinch, a choice. It brushed Walker's shoulder and darted past him along the wall with speed that didn't fit its bulk. Walker spun, lost his footing, and went off the edge in a slide. He dropped 5 feet and slammed into a stump. He cried out. The sound was sharp and helpless. Ankle, he said. I heard the pain in it. He tried to stand and couldn't. Carter grabbed him by the vest and kept him from going farther. Adams put his body in the narrow gap and spread his hands like a door with bad hinges. He grimaced like a man who had a knife in his ribs every time he breathed. He stayed there anyway. I kept eyes on the dark where it had vanished. I didn't try to chase. Chasing would have cut us into parts. It knew that. That's why it set the play. Pebbles began to fall from above us. First a sprinkle, then it stopped. A single heavy stone clunked on the path ahead. Placed like a line. It sat there fat and quiet and stupid, and my brain tied a knot I will never quite untie. On that stone lay a hair tie, black, plain, likely the geology student's. Fresh, still elastic, not bleached, not crumbled. The breath went out of me in a cold hiss. That was not random. That was message and proof in one. We had looked at her face on the sign. Now a piece of her sat between us and the way out. I wanted to go after that thing. I wanted to slam it into the rock until the whole rim shook and tell it to give them back. That's a real feeling. It's also a stupid one. I pushed it down. I made a mark of the spot in my head. A root with a curl that looked like a question, a slab with a white streak like chalk, a scar on a pine where bark had peeled and healed in a long tear. I didn't write those down. I burned them into my memory. I still see them when I blink at night sometimes. I whispered, we walk now. No chase, no hero stuff. We had a man with a bad ankle, a man with bruised ribs, and a man with a cut face and a swollen knee. We didn't have a fight left that would end well. We moved. I took the front. Adams behind me. Carter helped Walker with most of his weight. We went slow because fast would have spilled us into the scrub. The footfalls shadowed us. Always there. The pressure held like a hand on your shoulder. It didn't squeeze. It just reminded you it was there. When the first glint of our base tarp showed through the trees, the pressure lifted. Not all the way, but enough, like a door cracked open in a bad room. We didn't run the last yards. We didn't look back because we didn't need to. We knew it was behind us. We also knew it had decided we could go. At base, we dropped packs in a pile and went to work. No chatter, just tasks. Carter cleaned the cut on his cheek with water and gauze and a little iodine. He swore at the sting and then laughed because it didn't matter. Adam sat and let me tape his ribs tight. He held his breath in short sets while I rapped. He would sleep like a broken fence post for a week. Walker's ankle had a lump on the outside that looked like a golf ball. I splinted it with a padded board and tape and then braced it with his bootlace loose. He clenched and breathed and said thank you like a man too angry to cry. Hands shook all around only after we stopped moving. That's when the human part comes back and runs a check on what your body did without permission. You let it wash through. You don't feed it. Night sounds crept in slow. From deep in the woods came a single wood knock, sharp, then another farther away, then nothing for a long stretch. Then the normal forest started to return. One cricket, then two. A night bird called once. Our breath settled. Our eyes went back to human size. We ate a little more for the ritual than the calories. Nobody was hungry. The stove hissed gentle. The radio sat quiet and watched us like a dog. I opened the notebook and wrote a short report in plain words. Missing case items found. A holder. A water bottle with an odd dent. A bandana. A hair tie placed on a stone at a narrow trail gap. A lean-to structure of snapped branches with stones stacked inside. High scarf placed on pine. Stacks of folded trash. Fresh footprints in damp soil near a seep. Long white heel-to-toe spaced far apart. Nest-like ground bed, warm undersurface. Rocks tossed, knocks, whistles, copy voice. Eye shine at height. Signals of more than one. Radio echo. Once large unknown primate-like animal seen at close range. Watched with direct eye contact. Moved with speed and control. Showed territorial and defensive behavior. No chase, team withdrew before night. Injuries, bruised ribs, twisted ankle, facial cut, knee strain. We will return items to sheriff with location. We will advise to travel only in groups and to leave the area before dark. I kept it clean. No extras, reports are not for stories. They are for truth you can stand on when someone asks why you did what you did. I didn't write fear. I didn't need to. The facts carried their own weight. We bagged the hair tie and the holder and labeled them for the sheriff and the families. I hated that bag. It felt like a gravestone with no ground under it. We gave the location marks we could give. The curl in the root, the slab face, the scarred pine. I drew a quick sketch with a fat pencil. My hand steadied as soon as the pencil made a shape. Work helps. We set a watch in pairs through the night, though none of us slept much. Nothing pushed the tarp. Nothing threw stones at the base. At one point, I heard a whistle from far off and a knock answer it even farther. That was all. If it wanted to come in and destroy us, it would have. It didn't. It had made its point already. We had heard it. At first light, we called the helicopter. The pilot sounded tired and ready. We packed fast and neat. We left the lean-to things like we found them. We didn't clean the lean-to or kick down the stone stacks or untie the scarf. Some places you don't touch because touching is a statement you can't back up. We made sure our trash left with us. I checked the small square I had scratched by the lean-to on our way out the day before. We didn't go back that way. I still thought about it. The stick I had placed in the edge of the square sat tilted under my eyelids when I blinked. The helicopter sat down in the clearing and we moved in a short line. As the skids took weight, I looked out past the trail sign and the missing posters. Walker stared at the tree line behind the clearing. He didn't point. He just looked. After we were in the air, he leaned in so only I could hear. I saw it, he said. Edge of the trees still as a stump. I believed him. I didn't turn to look. I have looked enough at things I can't fix. Back at the small forward pad, we handed over the bagged items and the location to the sheriff. He looked at the hair tie and blinked fast and swallowed and said, "Thank you." He didn't ask about the rest in a way that would make me say the word. He didn't want to hear it from a mouth in uniform. I understood. He would go home and think about it alone. He would go back out later with volunteers and he would tell them to keep good spacing and to leave before dusk and to mark what they saw and to not go off trail, even if they heard something that sounded like a kid or a woman. He wouldn't say why. He wouldn't have to. I closed my notebook and put the pencil in the spiral. My hand left a smudge of dirt on the cover. Not a monster, I wrote at the bottom of the last page. Not a ghost. Something that lives here and wants room. People go missing when they don't read the signs. We read them. We left so we get to go home. That's the whole of it. No big twist. No secret crew rolling in with trucks and white suits. No giant ending. We saw a thing that owns that stretch of the rim. It watched us. It pressed us. It put a stone where it wanted a line. We listened. We left. I keep the notebook in a drawer. Sometimes I take it out and run my thumb over the pages where the pencil cut a little deeper, because my hand shook. The paper is thin. The words don't change. The truth doesn't need me to dress it. You want the story. There it is. We went slow. We went home, and something on the rim watched us go. So that's the end of our video. If you made it this far, make sure to hit like and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free. And if you want more terrifying encounters like this one, check out the other videos on screen right now. Thanks for watching and stay safe out there.